What's up, hipsters? Best mustache in the game, Blake, back at it again. And here it is. We're back for the Dominaria United full commander set review. Like I've been saying, this is going to be where we cover every single commander in the set. There's 75 of them. And then next video that we do for the set review will be the entire rest of the set, featuring most of the rares and mythics, except for the ones that I don't think are really playable. And then a handful of commons and uncommons. Basically the best of the rest sort of video. This video being how long it is, I am going to talk about every commander, even though there is 75 of them. But some of them are definitely filler or just made for limited and filling out archetypes and stuff. So just keep that in mind. If I kind of brush over a card and you think that there's something there, let me know. I'd love to discuss it with you. But as it stands, I'm going to try to outline any sort of potential playability I think a card is, even if it is filler. That being said, this is going to be a long one, and these videos don't typically do well because they are long. So if you do really like this series, please let me know. I want to keep doing the full set reviews because I think it's important to do, to let people know, especially about new cards, what they should expect and what they should try playing. So if you like this review, please do the normal algorithm stuff, like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends, do all that good stuff. So yeah, as this is going to be a long one, let's just get into it. Like I said, I'm talking about every single commander in the set, from the precons and from the main set, is all going to be in one video. So I like making full, comprehensive lists of things. I don't like breaking things up over several videos, even though that might be better for like viewership and stuff. So feel free to skip around until you see the commander you like and that stuff. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with the sort of precon commanders, all the legendary creatures that come in the two precons. So first off, we have Dihada, Binder of Wills. It's a planeswalker that can be your commander. It's 1 red, white, black for a 5 loyalty planeswalker. +2, up to 1 target legendary creature gains Vigilance, Lifelink, and Indestructible till end of your turn. Not a bad ability. -3, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. Put any number of legendary cards from among them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Create a treasure token for each card put into your graveyard this way. That's a pretty insane ability. -11, gain control of all 9 land permanents until end of turn. Untap them, they gain haste until end of turn. Okay, so that basically wins the game. Usually ultimates I don't really care about on planeswalkers, and this one I don't really care about too much. It's unlikely to hit ultimate. That being said, you are in white, so you can add counters to things a lot and all that sort of stuff. But mostly here I'm interested in the -3, as it makes a ton of mana and draws you cards. Impulse draws you cards that you can play till the end of your next turn, and it gives you mana to help you play them. So this card is quite powerful, I think. I don't think it's like broken by any means, but it is quite good. All it asks you to do is have like some sort of care for legendary creatures, so that way you can reliably have some value on the uptick. The downtick, honestly, you only need to hit like 1 card to feel good about it. In fact, sometimes you probably won't even want to put any of the cards in your hand. Just milling forward, making 4 treasures is very powerful. So yeah, I think this card's very good. You'll definitely see a lot of it as it being a face commander, but this card is just generally good. I plan on seeing this a lot, and it's going to be really good. Not as good, Jared Carthalion, the face of the other deck. It's a 5 loyalty planeswalker that can be your commander. It costs Wooburg to play. +1, you make a 3/3 that's all colors and has trample. -3, choose up to 2 target creature cards. For each of them, you put a number 1/1 counters on them equal to the colors that they are. -6, you return target multicolored card from your graveyard to your hand. If that card's all colors, you get to draw a card and make 2 treasures. So notably, you can uptick it once and then alt it. The uptick's pretty bad. Just making a 3/3 is really bad for 5 mana. And I wouldn't expect to untap with full loyalty, as this is just it just makes a ground creature that's not very good at blocking. So yeah, this is, as most planeswalkers in the format are, the downtick isn't good enough to make this good. So you can't really get enough immediate value to make this card good, unless you can immediately alt it, which most of the time you won't be able to do. But even if you do alt it immediately, it's going to like die or whatever, and then you get like some value. You get to draw 2 cards and make 2 treasure. That's not very good for 5 mana. I mean, it's fine for 5 mana, but it's not very good. So yeah, I think Jared Carthalion is just not a very good card, just straight up. And then Jensen Carthalion's not much better, but it's a little better, I think. It's a white and a green for a 2/2. Whenever you cast a multicolored spell, you scry 1, and then if the spell's all colors, you make a 4/4 Vigilant Angel with flying. And then you can filter 5 mana through it to make Wooburg. I think this card's fine. This is just kind of a, I don't know, it's just kind of a filler 5 color commander. It's really good if you're like on a budget 5 color list, as it fixes your mana for you. But other than that, I don't really see much upside to playing this card. There's not very many cards that are all colors, and then if they are, all you get is a angel, which is like whatever. I think this is a pretty good budget 5 color commander, though. Comes down early, helps you fix your mana, will help you scry through cards that you don't want to draw as you kind of play your game. So yeah, this card's not very good still. It's a little bit better than Jared, I think, but just because it has some potential for budget lists. But in general, this card's not very good, but it's cute. Card that is quite good, Shanid Sleeper Scourge. 1 red, white, black for a 2/4 human knight with menace. Other legendary creatures you control have menace, not a bad ability. Whenever you play a legendary land or cast a legendary spell, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. Wow, that's really powerful. You basically, all this card asks you to do is just put legendary cards in your deck, and you're going to draw a ton of cards off of it. It helps give your legendary creatures evasion. It has evasion. It's efficiently costed at 4 mana. This card's kind of generically powerful. It's not really that exciting. There's just so many legendary everything now. Every set has a million legendary cards in it, as you've seen from my other set reviews, since Commander's the format now. So, yeah, this card's very good. Kind of boringly good. So yeah, if you want to build this card, I don't think you're going to have to try too hard. So yeah, we'll try to just leave it at that. It's powerful. It's good. It's kind of boring, though. Cerium Golden Wind. 3 and a white for a 3/4 legendary creature Griffin. It has flying. Whatever Griffin you control deals combat damage to a player, create a 2/2 white Griffin creature token with flying. So Wizards has been in this habit, especially in this set, of trying to fill out all the garbage sort of tribal commanders that somebody's been asking for, apparently. So this is just like low-hanging fruit, I guess, that they've been trying to cash in on and trying to find places to put these garbage tribal commanders in for the few people that care about them, I guess. Whatever. If somebody is happy about it and likes it, then more power to them. But yeah, this is for Griffin tribal. Not very many Griffins around that are any good. This one's not very good. It doesn't give you a good payoff for playing Griffins. But hey, if you want to play a garbage tribal deck, this is a garbage tribal deck for you mono white Griffin fans. So if this is what you were looking for, you got it, but it's not good. Moria Urborg Tyrant. 2 and a black for a 3/2 with Menace, Spirit Wizard. When it deals combat damage to a player, return to the battlefield target creature card in your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn. This card would be pretty sweet if it wasn't just your graveyard, if you could get your opponent's stuff. So you could go like, hey, I'll go for the throat your thing, then hit you, then take it. That'd be a pretty cute interaction that you could do, and then it would be kind of a unique commander. As it stands, I don't know. We have plenty of commanders that do a very similar thing and way better at doing it too. So this card doesn't excite me. It's just a worse card than a lot of the other cards that you could have at the helm of this archetype. So that being said, it's probably a fine like 99 card in some cases for your legendary tribal decks, I guess, or whatever. So yeah, not very exciting, but it exists. Somebody might play it. Bladewing Deathless Tyrant. 5 black and a red for 6/6 flying haste dragon skeleton. When it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker for each creature card in your graveyard, create a 2/2 zombie knight creature token with menace. This is not going to be a very good commander because it's just going to sit there in the command zone. Everybody will see it coming. They'll see your graveyard start filling up, and they'll either exile your graveyard or kill this when it hits the battlefield because they know it's going to happen. However, I think this card's pretty solid in a like reanimator shell or something that just plays it in the 99 and can kind of cheat it out, as it just puts out so much power so quickly because it has haste, so it enables itself immediately. So yeah, I'm thinking this is kind of like a self-mill sort of dredgy reanimator deck, because this is just going to dome somebody for a decent chunk right off the bat and then make you a giant army of menace zombies. So this card's not good as a commander for sure, but it's interesting, at least for like a 99 sort of build. So yeah, I think this card's solid. Kadric Soul Kindler. 2 red white for a 4/3 dwarf wizard. The legend rule doesn't apply to tokens you control. Once again, we just for some reason just constantly want to get rid of the legend rule but keep it in the game so we can have commanders, I guess. I don't want to get started on my rant, but I just hate the cards that get past the legend rule. It's just so boring because there's just so many of them now. It's like just bypassing like the whole balancing system of these cards, but whatever, Anyway, I won't get started on that rant. A lot of you know how I feel about that. Whenever another non-token legendary permanent enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1 generic. If you do create a token that's a copy of it, that token gains haste, sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. That's a very powerful effect for sure. All this asks you to do is play a non-token permanent, and then you pay one and you make a copy of it. So this also includes lands for what it's worth. It just says permanent. You still have to sacrifice the land at the end of the turn, but hey, it kind of still just comes out even. And if it has any sort of powerful effect like a legendary lands do, then you can get some extra effect out of it, which is nice. But yeah, this is just a pretty powerful card, kind of generically so. All it asks you to do is play legends, which, as we talked about, is not much of an ask nowadays. There's just a billion legends that get printed every year. So yeah, this card's doesn't really interest me too much because I don't think this archetype is pretty played out at this point. To me, the legend matters sort of archetype, and I have a deck that's a legend matters sort of deck. And I thought it would be hard to build. I built it like about a year ago now, I guess. It's like an Abzan +1 counters legendary sort of tribal deck. But man, it was not very hard to build. I just kind of looked through my bulk rares and found a bunch of legendary creatures that cared about +1 counters in Abzan, and there's plenty of them. So yeah. So I don't think this deck's very hard to build. It will be good. I'm sure you'll see this deck around. This deck will be good. So yeah, that's my assessment of the card. Verak Warp Sengir. 1 black-white for a 2/2 vampire with flying death touch lifelink. There you go, Vampire Nighthawk fans. You got a commander now. Whenever you activate an ability that isn't a mana ability, if life was paid to activate it, you may pay that much life again. If you do copy that ability, you may choose new targets for the copy. That's quite a powerful effect. It works on your fetch lands, which is very, very good. And plenty of other things that want you to pay life, like Phyrexian mana for abilities, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I think this card's got some play to it for sure. For whatever reason, it's not ranking very high on EDH Rec, at least for early builds. So not a ton of people are building it, but it seems like a pretty powerful card. It seems like there's some pretty fun, cute things you can do with this card. And it doesn't seem overpowered or anything. The fetch land interaction is pretty insane, obviously. However, most other things that you do with this card will be good, but there's some play that you have to it, right? You have to have this on the battlefield and then also do the thing. So, yeah. It's a pretty good card. Pretty cool. Interesting build around. The Peregrine Dynamo. 3 mana, 1/5 artifact creature construct. It has haste. You pay 1 and tap it. Copy target activated or triggered ability you control from another legendary source that's not a commander. You may choose new targets for the copy. This could be pretty fun for kind of like a oddball sort of rogue commander as itself to do some weird stuff with. I don't think this card is broken or really even that good in the 99 or as a commander for sure. But it's a really cool design. I like this card, what it's doing. But there's probably just some cute things you can do with it. I don't anticipate it'll be very powerful in the 99 or as a commander, but I'm glad this card exists. I might try building around it at some point just for the lulz. Emperor Malia 2, 1 blue, legendary creature, Merfolk Noble. It's a 3/3. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast Merfolk spells from the top of your library. Whenever you cast a Merfolk spell, you may pay 1. If you do, create a 1/1 blue Merfolk creature token. We see this effect all the time, the sort of future sight for a tribe or a specific archetype. Gavin Verhey has just said that Future Sight's his favorite card, and whatever he designs has said he's always got to put a couple of these in, apparently. That being said, I don't think this is the best Merfolk commander by any stretch of the imagination, but you'll be happy to have it in your Merfolk decks. That's where it's going to be at home, obviously. But it's solid Merfolk. Sorry, I'm going to try to prevent my voice from going out nice and early here by keeping a drink nearby me. I'm definitely going to... My voice is going to be shot by the end of this. All right, next up we got Roxnaka, Heir of Roga. Sure, we'll go with that. It's a 1 red mana Kobold Warrior 0/1. It has Battle Cry, which means when it attacks, your other attacking creatures get an extra power. And then it has Heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets this, you create a 0/1 Kobold, which is pretty sweet. Cool design here. Like this card. Definitely not on the strongest side, but very cool card. Very interesting. It kind of asks you to do a sort of Voltron-y thing that's not equipment with like, instant sorceries or auras because they actually target. They're spells that target, not abilities like equipment. So yeah, cool card. Probably could do some cool build around sort of token-y, go wide, mono red stuff. Cool card. Not very powerful, but cool. Baru Wormspeaker. Speaking of garbage tribal commanders, Two red, red for a 3/3 human druid. Worms you control get +2/+2 and have trample. 8 and tap, create a 4/4 green worm creature token, and this ability costs X less, where X is the greatest power among worms you control. So once you have one worm out, it is going to cost 1 green tap to make a worm. So worms has always been one of my favorite tribes. That being said, I'm not really a tribal player, but I'll probably try building this just for the walls. I've kind of been looking at the worms that exist, and I know a lot of them in the back of my mind. And there's not really, it's not going to be a good deck. It's going to be quite bad. But this is at least a decent payoff for worms. Like it gives them trample, which you'd think a lot of them have, but most of them don't. They're just vanilla big idiots. And then it helps you make some worms, which is cool. So yeah, interesting card. Not good, but it's cool. Garbage tribal commander, better than the Griffin one for sure. Green Sleeves Morrow Sorcerer, 3 green for a star. Protection from planeswalkers and from wizards. Okay. The weirdest text I've ever read on a Magic card. Power and touches are equal to the number of lands you control. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under you control, you make a 3/3 green badger creature token. This is like if you wanted to put rampaging Baloths in your command zone, then like I guess this is for you. But there's like basically every land's commander is like better than this one. Hell, even like Multani is probably better than this one. So yeah, this card's not particularly very good, but it's interesting. It'd probably be a good budget lands commander deck, I guess. But most of the good budget lands commanders are not more than like $1 or $2 anyway, it seems. So yeah, probably just gonna be a 99 card, and even there, it's not gonna be great. So whatever, just another lands card in the list, and we have plenty of way better ones. So I mean, you could build around it, but like, I guess. Aisha Tonka Armorer, 3 white blue for a 2/4 human artificer. When it attacks, you look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may put any number of artifact cards with mana value less than or equal to this card's power onto the battlefield tapped. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This can't be blocked as long as the defending player controls 3 or more artifacts. So that last line of text is definitely very relevant nowadays, as most people use like treasures and all sorts of ways to make artifacts. Lots of decks just use mana rocks because they're not green and stuff. So most players you'll be able to attack without being blocked as it is. So that's pretty good. And then most of the time, what I would say that you'd probably play with this commander is equipment, as it buffs their power and it gives them more. It allows you to more reliably play more equipment and other cards off the top of your library, because it'll increase the power and it's an artifact. So yeah, I think there's some cool fun things you can do with this card. Seems like a decent Azorius sort of utility artifacts commander. Yeah, I like this card. I like what it's doing. Unique design, cool payoff. The Ever-Changing Dane, 1 white. It's a white, blue, and black, so 3 mana for a 3/3 shapeshifter. You can pay 1 and sack another creature to make this a copy of the sacked creature, and it gains this ability. Wow, this card has like pretty crazy potential. Just be a copy of whatever else you got. It's a sack outlet on your command zone, which is really nice. It's Esper 3 colors, which is a good color combination for sacking creatures. So yeah, I think this card's pretty cool, interesting. You can do some fun things with this, I'm sure. But yeah, this card, it's just hard to evaluate on the surface, but you'll definitely see decks around this card. And there's probably some cute, fun things that you can do with this. I'm sure there's probably some infinite out there that you can do with it too that's convoluted and such. But yeah, interesting card at least. Very unique. This one's a filler one, so we'll just brush over it real quick. General Marholt, Elves Dragon, 2 red and a green for a 4/4. Whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, it gets +3/+3 until end of turn for each creature blocking it. So it gives your creatures kind of rampage, basically. Not exactly rampage, but close. Yeah, it's just whatever. Gruul thing that cares about attacking and some random blocking clause. Not much to be done with this card, I don't think. I mean, you could do like low stuff like you do with most rampage cards, but whatever. Not very interesting. Just filler. Hizazon, Shaper of the Sand, red, green, white for a 3/3 human warrior. It has Desert Walk, which means it can't be blocked as long as the defending player controls a desert. Never thought I'd see that on a card. You may play desert lands from your graveyard. Whenever a desert enters the battlefield under your control, create 2 1/1 red, green, white sand creature tokens. So the original Hizazon has always interested in me. I've always thought it'd be a really cool commander. And this one's even just as interesting, if not more interesting to me. This one seems like one I want to build around. So currently I have a Bant Cycling Lands deck, and I might just shift it to this to mix it up. As I don't really play the deserts in there now, but this would give me incentive to do so. I could probably lead into the tokens as a sort of side win condition, like Divine Visitation and that sort of stuff. Anointed Procession. You're in green, so you can play Doubling Season and that stuff too if you want to. If you wanted to, you could just play some generic lands shell with this card too, as you're in green. But yeah, at least gives you some interesting options. I like the idea of playing Valakut Exploration and Tectonic Reformation in the deck to really go off. You definitely want to have some sack outlets for your deserts to keep replaying them and getting your landfall triggers and stuff like Zurin Orb and Sylvan Safekeeper and stuff like that. So this card's definitely cool. Definitely cool things to do with this card. Very interesting build around. I think I counted there's like 13 or 15 deserts or something like that. So there's a good density of deserts, enough to make this card work, I think. And most of the deserts pay you off for sacking them. They'll make you a zombie or put a -1 counter on something, or that sort of stuff. So there's definitely some cool things to be doing here. I like this card a lot. Probably we'll see it on a Bruise Day episode in the near future. Jidit Ojanen, Mercenary. 1 white-blue for a 3/3 cat mercenary. When it or another legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay a green mana. If you do, you create a 2/2 cat warrior creature token with Forest Walk. So this has Bant color identity, green, white, blue. But this card's not really doing much. It wants you to play legendary creatures, and then it also pays you off for making more cats if you want to care about like cat travel or something. So I don't think there's much to be doing here, really. This card's kind of just boring, doesn't really do much. So mostly filler. I'm sure somebody will have fun with it, though. The Lady of Otaria, 3 red-green for a 5/5 avatar. You may tap 3 untapped dwarfs you control rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Extremely powerful ability. Cheating mana cost is always great, and all this asks you to have is 3 dwarves. I don't think that's very hard to do. Yeah, this card is very good. That's a very good ability. And the second ability is also very good. At the beginning of each end step, if a land you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield this turn, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put any number of dwarf cards from among them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So yeah, that's a pretty powerful effect. Also, wants you to play Dwarf Tribal, also sack lands and put lands in your graveyards in a way. So in this deck, you're going to play every sort of fetch land that you can play. You're going to play all the dual fetches that you can play, all the Zendikar fetches. You're going to play Fabled Passage, and Prismatic Vista. Basically all the fetches that you can, because those are real easy ways to trigger this ability at basically no cost. And then this is kind of a self-healing engine. You'll get more dwarves in your hand that you can play to help cast you this that will get more dwarves in your hand. So, yeah, this card seems very good. Seems very easy to get online. Also, the dwarves that you tap to cast this can have Summoning Sickness. You could just play them as you just untap dwarves. They don't have to tap as part of the, So this card I think is very good. I think this is probably the one that I'm going to build around tomorrow for Bruce Day. It's either going to be like this Hazazon or maybe something else, but this is the one I'm leaning towards. Not typically a tribal player, like I said earlier, but this is going to be like an interesting sort of tribal dwarves lands sort of shell, I think. So this one I might try my hand at for sure. This card's very powerful. Like the design of this card still, because dwarves aren't very powerful, but they contribute very well to this engine. So this card's is a very scary, very good card, I think. Ohabi Kaliria, 1 green-white for a 1/3 elf archer. It has reach. Untap all archers you control during each other player's untap step. So we got another garbage tribal commander in the form of archers this time. Whenever an archer you control deals damage to a creature, you may pay 2 if you do draw a card. That last ability is quite powerful, as most archers have like a tap to ping a flyer sort of ability. So you can sort of just farm flyers by not really killing them, but just dealing damage to them each turn. And then you can continually draw cards. That being said, it's still kind of clunky, it seems, as paying 2 generics a lot, and it doesn't untap your lanes, just your archers. So you still have to be able to keep supplying the mana. Archers in general aren't very powerful, but a lot of them are like elves randomly too, so you could probably get some payoff by playing some elf tribal stuff like Priests of Titanios or whatever. And then, yeah, I mean, the payoffs here, it draws you cards for playing archers, and it helps you crowd control the flyers that they really like to kill. So I think this card's solid. It's a good Archer Tribal payoff card, just because it draws you cards and allows you to keep killing all the flyers, which they're very good at. So, but yeah, generally with this, I would imagine that you wouldn't want to just kill the flyers. You usually probably just want to farm them for damage, like poke it for 1 when it's a 1/3 or something, and then tap 2 to draw a card, and you just do that during each turn to draw a bunch of cards. And you're in green, so you can get a lot of mana to keep drawing cards. So, card's interesting. I don't think it's that powerful, but it's a good payoff for archers, so you'll probably see it around for somebody who wants to build Archer Tribal. Ramirez de Pietro Pillager, 2 blue-black for a 4/3 human pirate. When it enters the battlefield, you lose 2 life and you make 2 treasures. Whenever 1 or more pirates you control deal combat damage to a player, exile the top card of that player's library. You may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled. So this card is quite good, just in general. It gives you the treasures to help you cast the cards that you exile. Notably, the cards that you exile, you can't spend mana or mana of any color, so you do have to use those treasures to spend colored mana that you can't produce. That being said, I would recommend playing City of Brass and the 5 mana color producing lands in your deck, as they will help you cast those cards without having to have treasure around. But yeah, it exiles the cards and allows you to cast them, so you can't play lands that you exile with this. That being said, this card seems like a pretty reliable value engine for pirates. There's plenty of good black pirates decks, or if you have like a Admiral Beckett Brass deck, this would be a great card to put in the deck. So yeah, just a good tribal lord, good pirate here. Be in the 99 of pirates decks, as well as a good commander on its own. Ramses Assassin Lord, 2 blue-black for a 4/4 human assassin, death touch. Other assassins you control get +1/+1. Whenever a player loses the game, if they were attacked this turn by an assassin you controlled, you win the game. So another garbage tribal commander for assassins this time. However, this one has a pretty good payoff here. You probably don't want to just run this one out. You probably want to hold this kind of in your command zone and kind of chip away at people and get ready to kill somebody, and then kind of bring this in right where you can land the finishing blow on somebody, and then get that trigger to win the game. So interesting card, but assassins are just kind of whatever. Yeah, it's just a garbage tribal card, gives you a garbage tribal payoff, but the payoff's not like insane or anything. It's cute, interesting, but not really that great. So yeah, that's about all I gotta say about it. If you like assassins, then here you go. Rasputin the Oneromancer. Sure, we'll go with that. 1 white blue for a 4/1. When it enters the battlefield, you put a dream counter for each opponent you have. Each opponent creates a 1/1 red goblin creature token. You can tap and remove any number of dream counters to make that much colorless mana. You can tap and remove a dream counter to make a 2/2 knight with protection from red. I don't think there's a lot going on here. It seems like to me this would be like a Flicker's Matter sort of commander, where you can spam make tokens for your opponents and spam produce a bunch of mana with its first ability. And then maybe if you're desperate, you can make a knight or something. That's about all I see here. I don't think this card's very good. It doesn't really interest me a ton personally, but that's about where I would see it being played, is in like a Flicker shell. Blue-white does plenty of that, so yeah. But the Summoning Sickness obviously hurts this card a lot. But yeah, I don't know. Not really that interesting to me, but it does some stuff. Does stuff. That's about all I can say about it. Roga Kerkeep Overlord, 3 black-red for a Kobold Warrior, 4/4. Other kobolds you control get +2/+2. Another garbage tribal commander. Whenever you cast a kobold spell, you may pay 2 generic. If you do, create a 4/4 dragon creature token with flying. Okay, that's a pretty good ability, as most kobolds are free. They're usually 0 mana 0/1s. Whenever you cast a dragon spell, you create a 0/1 red kobold creature token named Kobold Kerkeep. Interesting card. This is definitely one of the better garbage tribal commanders we've seen, as casting all these garbage kobolds that you have will suddenly start producing you 4/4 dragons, and your kobolds turn into 2/3s, which is pretty sweet. So yeah, I think this card's a pretty good garbage tribal payoff commander. Much better than a lot of the other ones we've seen. Yeah, I definitely think there's something here. You'll see this commander, and it'll be solid for sure, even though it looks kind of bad. The kobolds, although I will say that the kobolds are basically useless when this isn't on the battlefield, so yeah. At least you get to kind of hold them in your hand until after you play this. You can just sit there with them in your hand, and then you play this on 4 or 5 or whatever turn you're on, and then the next turn you can spam kobolds out and make a bunch of dragons. So, but if they keep blowing this up, then you're not going to be doing anything. So, yeah, there's that. But yeah, I think this is a pretty good payoff. You can randomly run a few good dragons in your deck too to help pay off your dragons, I would say, as you probably won't have the density of just kobolds on their own. So, yeah, I think this is one of the better garbage tribal commanders. Staying Echo Warrior, 2 red green for a 3/4 human warrior. When it attacks, you make a legendary token that's called Stang Twin, tapped and attacking, and then you copy all the aura and equipment that are on this card onto the Stang Twin, and then you sack all the tokens that got produced that way at the beginning of the next end step. I really like how this copies the auras and equipment that are on the original one here and puts them on the clone. So if you have any sort of way to pay off sacking the artifacts or auras or the creature that you produced, and then you're going to be able to produce a ton of value from this outside of any sort of hit triggers that you have from like Sword of X and Y's or whatever. So this is a pretty cool, interesting commander. I like the design of this card, much more interesting than the original Stang that all it did was just a 3/4 that made a 3/4. So yeah, interesting card. Cool build arounds will happen with this card, I think. Some cards that will not have cool build arounds is this card, Savitri Dragon Master. It's 2 blue-black. It's a Planeswalker with 4 loyalty that can be your commander. It's a +1 until your next turn. Creatures can't attack you or Planeswalkers you control unless their controller pays 2 life for each of those creatures. It's not very good ability. If your opponents want to attack you, they don't even have to pay mana. I think Ghostly Prison / Propaganda is a much more effective way of deterring people from you than 2 life, as we have so much life in Commander just to throw around. So, but yeah, that being said, it might be annoying for your opponents a little bit, but pretty bad +1 there. -3, search your library for a dragon card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Not a very great -3 for 4 mana. 4 mana just a tutor for a dragon. It's not a very good rate. Or in black, we can play Demonic Tutor and that sort of stuff. So, and it's a pretty narrow tutor at that, as blue-black doesn't have a ton of dragons. I assume that we're going to get more dragons printed over time, as they love printing dragons nowadays. But yeah, that being said, I don't think that's a very powerful ability, even in a nutshell. Even if they keep printing nuts dragons, I just don't think that's very good. And then -7 doesn't do you a whole lot more. -7, you destroy all non-dragon creatures. It's not a game-winning alt, not even a very good alt. Yeah, I think this card just sucks. I don't think it's very good. It's got really pretty art, cool design as far as the art. So some people might play it for that or something. If you want to play Dimir Dragons, I would recommend actually playing a dragon like Silumgar the Drifting Death or something. But yeah, as it stands, I think this card's quite awful. Tetsuo Imperial Champion, blue, black, red for a 3/3 human samurai. When it attacks, if it's equipped, you choose one. It deals damage equal to the highest mana value among equipment attached to it to any target. Or you get to cast an instant sorcery from your hand with mana value less than or equal to the highest mana value among equipment attached to it without paying its mana cost. Really cool card. I don't anticipate you'll use the second ability on this card very much. It's just a really good removal on a stick commander that asks you to attack with it with equipment on it. So, like, you know, it's not like the most value. It's not insane, but I've always found it really useful to have effects like this in my command zone, removal on a stick. As the way I play Commander, usually for me, my Commander isn't my entire game plan. As if somebody removes it permanently or, you know, locks it under a Song of the Dreads or something where I have a hard time getting it back, then if my deck falls apart, then that's pretty bad. So usually I just design Commander decks around, you know, making Commanders just kind of part of the engine, give me value in some way that contributes to the larger picture of things, as it makes my game plan more reliable and so on. So all that being said, I really like having removal in the command zone, especially reliable removal, which I think this is pretty reliable removal. And then randomly, if you get a cheat like an instant or sorcery spell, if there's nothing on the board you want to kill, that's kind of nice. It kind of gives you mana advantage in that way. So yeah, I think there's definitely some play, some cool things you can do with this card. It's a Grixis card that cares about equipment. We don't really see that very often, and it randomly also cares about instants and sorceries. So yeah, I think this card's pretty cool. Really cool design. I like this card. Maybe build around it at some point. I don't know. Interesting card for sure, though. And I don't think it really asks. I don't think you really want to play like full on Voltron and just put a ton of equipment on this and go all in. I would say you just want to play like good value equipment like Sword of X and Y's and Lightning Greaves and things like that. As they just give you extra value for doing good things that you already want to do. And then you use those equipment in other ways, like caring about artifacts and other stuff like that. I think it's the shell that I would go with. Tobias Doomed Conqueror, 2 white black for a 3/2 with flash. When it dies, for each non-token you control that died this turn, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. I don't think there's much to be doing here. About the only thing I can think of is like you can like Ashnod's Altar, Nim Deathmantle loop with this, as you can with like a billion other commanders. So yeah, that's about the only thing I can think of that you can really do with it that's really very interesting at all. Because it'll keep counting itself dying too. So as long as you had like 2 or 3 creatures die with this, then you'll make enough zombies to fuel the Ashnod's Altar / Dim Deathmantle combo. But yeah, I don't think this card's particularly good or interesting or anything like that. But yeah, it's just mostly filler. Torwalkie the Younger, 3 black red for a 3/3 human archer, has a reach lifelink. If source you control would deal non-combat damage to a permanent or player, it deals that much damage +1. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, this deals 2 damage to any target. So yeah, this is just kind of a spells matter card that amplifies your damage. Notably, its first ability amplifies the damage of its second ability. Plus, it has lifelink, so when it deals that damage, you keep the life back 2. This card does quite a bit. It is expensive at 5 mana. And it wants you to play instants and sorceries, so Rakdos Spellslinger is kind of interesting. Usually you'd be playing like Vile Smasher plus another commander to kind of do this thing, so it's interesting to build it in just Rakdos. So there's that, but I don't think this commander is like very powerful, but it's cool. I like the design here, kind of unique. Tortson, founder of Benalia, 5 green-white for a 7/7 human soldier. When it enters the battlefield, you reveal the top 7 cards of your library, put a number of creature and/or land cards from among them into your hand, the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. When this dies, you create 7 1/1 green-white creature tokens. 7 1/1 white soldier creature tokens, sorry. So this card looks kind of just like filler, not really that good, just a lot of value stapled to a body. But I think there's some things you can do here. This could just be a good top end for like a tokens deck where you can reliably sack this or something. This is a good card to kind of follow up a tokens deck after you go wide on the board and you get board wiped, which is usually really bad for a tokens deck. Then you could just slam this down, get a ton of value back, and then when this dies, hopefully it dies, and then it makes you more creatures. So we have a million Selesnya tokens commanders, though, and this is definitely not very high on the priority list, but you could do some stuff here. But yeah, I don't think you'll see this card very often. I don't think it's garbage, but it's not very good. It's not good enough to be better than like all the other ones like Reese and another one we're going to talk about later. Zero the Golden Sting, 1 black green red for a 3/3 insect assassin. It's flying in haste, and when it attacks you put an egg counter on a creature without an egg counter on it, and the creature when it dies you get to draw a card and make a 1/1 black insect creature token with flying. If you have not seen the token that this produces, you got to look it up. It's the most ridiculous thing that you've ever seen. That being said, this card's not particularly good. It's definitely better than the other Zero, but that's not saying much of anything. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This reminds me of the green-black one from Ikoria. Chevelle or whatever his name is that puts bounty counters on things. So, I mean, this adds a color to that. So if you want to do like a bounties tribal sort of deck, then I guess so you could use this as a commander. But I anticipate people will just use this as a commander if they want to just make that ridiculous insect token. That's the main draw to this card. I didn't want to spoil it here for you. I wanted to give you a little research and let you look it up. But it's kind of nightmare fuel, but you can't look away because it's just so ridiculous. And it's hard to believe that it's a real magic token. Okay. But anyway, yeah, I don't think this card's very good. Won't see a ton of play. But you will probably see it at some point, and you will see its ridiculous token. Jasmine Boreal of the 7, 1 green-white for a 2/4 human druid. It taps for a green and a white mana, but you can only spend that mana to cast creature spells with no abilities. Creatures you control with no abilities can't be blocked by creatures with abilities. Turns out, like all the creatures in Commander that get played have abilities, because why would you play creatures that don't have abilities unless this was your Commander? So this archetype was filled out by Ruxa, which is a mono green card that does a similar effect. It allows you to assign combat damage as though they weren't blocked. But these, they straight up can't block them. Therefore, they can't kill your creatures back. So I think this is quite a bit better of a commander than Ruxa. It's cheaper, helps you cast those creatures that don't have abilities. Still gives you the payoff of allowing them not to be blocked. And it adds an extra color being white. So yeah, I think this card's pretty good. There's plenty of good white creatures that don't have abilities too. They're just overstated idiots like Ishimaru and stuff like that. So I think this card's cool. Cool build around here. Interesting card. Pretty good card too. Good payoffs here. Makes mana for you and helps you win the game. So yeah, good card. Orca Siege Demon. 5 black and a red for a 5/5 demon with trample. Whenever another creature dies, you put a 1/1 counter on this, and then when this dies, it deals damage equal to its power divided as you choose among any number of targets. So this reminds me a lot of Jury, except a million mana, and Jury is not a million mana. It's only 2 mana. But this one, you just get a giant body with trample, but that's not really too relevant. This card's mostly filler. Interesting card, though. I think it'd be a decent 99 card to kind of reanimate. That being said, there's just so many good reanimated targets now, it's hard to justify this one. But if you're in a sack heavy deck, if you're like a sack reanimator sort of Rakdos Seed deck, I can see it. Could be a decent win condition for you. Start stacking up a bunch of power on it and then sack it and throw all that power at somebody else, then reanimate it again and do it again. So there's definitely some things you can do here. As a commander, the only thing I could think of is like doing some command beacon sort of cheaty stuff to put it into your hand and then cheat it into play with reanimate sort of effects by discarding it and stuff. But that's a lot of hoops to jump through. And you could be doing way better things. That being said, if you wanted to do that, there's probably a world where you could do that sort of stuff, but mostly filler card here. Interesting design, though. Danitha Benalius Hope, 4 and a white for a 4/4. Oh, I will say, we are actually on the main set of Dominaria now. We are out of the Commander Precon cards, so we're getting close to the halfway point. Trying to march through this. We're only at 41 minutes, so I'm trying to keep it moving. We still have a few fillers here and there left, so it'll give me a quick break on those. Danitha Benalius Hope, 4 and a white for a 4/4 Human Knight with first strike, vigilance, lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, you may put an aura or equipment card from your hand or graveyard on the battlefield attached to this. Excuse me while I take a drink. Okay. This card's interesting. The graveyard side of this is obviously way better, as doing it from your hand will cheat your mana costs, but it will still essentially cost you a card, while getting the card back from your graveyard will give you card advantage. It's a card that you didn't have that you couldn't play before that now is in play and equipped, so it kind of cheats mana in that way too. This card's interesting. It's in mono white though, so it's hard to like put things in your graveyard with like an entomb or something like that. You can still play some self-milled cards here and there, like Perpetual Timepiece and those sort of things. That being said, this is sort of a Voltron-y sort of card that's 5 mana, so it's pretty easy to make this really annoying for your opponents. However, at least it has card advantage and mana advantage stapled onto it in a way, and it's a really good card to put those aura and equipment on, so there's that, but I don't think there's a lot to be done here. This card might be okay in like in a deck that's already in Voltron-y sort of stuff, as like a backup sort of way to get value going, or a backup sort of Voltron if somebody keeps killing your commander. Probably not in mono white. I mean in mono white too, but most of the time you won't be in a mono white Voltron. You'd probably be like red white or green white or something like that. But yeah, not the greatest card, but probably a decent 99er. Braid's Arisen Nightmare. 1 black for a Nightmare 3/3. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with it. For each opponent who does, that player loses 2 life and you draw a card. So this card is very interesting. I think at a base level, this is just a okay sack outlet that might get you some value. If you want to sack some creature or artifact that's going to get you value when you sack it, that's cool. But for me, I built a deck around this card. If you'd like to see that, check out my Bruise Day episode 1. It's around Braids, where I decided to lean into the card advantage the most by trying to maximize this ability by building around a sort of mono black Super Friends sort of deck, a Planeswalkers deck, as not very many decks, if most decks don't even have Planeswalkers in them. So my concept for the deck is play a Planeswalker, tick it down to get value, and then sack at the end step to draw 3. So yeah, in that way, I think there's some build around here where you can get some guaranteed ton of value, or you can just go the generic sack route for this card and maybe get some value. Either way, this card's definitely got a lot of play to it. Very interesting card, cool sack outlet. Yeah, there's definitely some interesting things to be done. If you're just using it as an Aristocrats commander, though, I think you got better options. That being said, yeah, I think this card's sweet. If you'd like to see a deck tech around it and what I think of it, some cool ideas that I have for it, check out my Bruise Day episode with it. I like the card a lot. Next up, the Raven Man, 1 and a black for a 2/1 human wizard. At the beginning of each end step, if a player discarded a card this turn, you may create a 1/1 black bird creature token with flying. This creature can't block. And then you could pay 3 and a black and tap, and each opponent discards a card, activate only as a sorcery. So this asks you to be in discard tribal. It's a very good CMC at 2. However, it's competing with Tiny Bones, which I think is a significantly better commander, as it actually gives you card advantage. All this just gives you some fairly useless birds, as they can't even block. That being said, it does give you the discard outlet on the card, so that's interesting. But it does say at the beginning of each end step, if a player, so if you want to play like a mono black madness deck or something, then that might be an interesting thing that you can do with this card, as it triggers off of your discard as well. But I anticipate this would just mostly be built just like Tiny Bones, but worse, because you don't have Tiny Bones in your command zone. But yeah, if you are considering building this card, just keep in mind that playing against discard heavy decks like this commander asks you to do, it's not very fun. So play this deck sparingly, as your friends will get bored with it very quickly. And this card, unlike a lot of the other discard tribal commanders like Tiny Bones, like Turok, stuff like that, those commanders give you much more reliable ways to kind of progress the game with card advantage or a big threat, while this card just doesn't really progress the game nearly as fast, as it just makes you a handful of birds. So the game can kind of drag out. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Not the most fun deck to play against. This is definitely a worse commander than a lot of the other discard tribal commanders. But just as the Raven Man is a character that people have been wanting a card for a long time, you'll definitely see this commander, as people like this character a lot, I'm sure. So if you're a Raven Man sort of aspiring builder, just keep those thoughts in mind. Sheoldred, the Apocalypse, 2 black for a 4/5 Phyrexian Praetor. It has Death Touch. Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever your opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. Really nice little package here. These abilities don't sound like a lot, but I think these abilities are both quite good. Getting you this is quite a bit of incidental life gain. It also kind of pays you off for a lot of the black cards will draw you more cards than their mana value, and their cost is usually you have to pay some life into it. But this will get you all that life back, basically, and more. And kind of controlling your opponent's draw a bit by making them lose 2 life for each card will help keep like wheel effects under control and stuff like that. So, and this is kind of just an overstated Death Touch body, so it's really annoying to attack into. Real nice little package, and that's not even to mention all the combos. There's some combos you can do with this card with like this and like Lich's Mastery and Lich effects, where when you gain a life, you draw a card. So this will allow you to draw your whole deck, and Lich's Mastery makes so you don't lose the game. So then all you have to do is find a way to win the game with your whole deck in your hand, which isn't very hard to do. With like Sickening Dreams, you throw your whole hand at your opponents or whatever. So yeah, interesting card. Has some pretty cool combos that you can do with it. Really nice little package, just generically good card. You'll definitely see this card. Squee, Dubious Monarch. Hopefully you won't see this card, because this card sucks. 2 and a red for a Goblin Noble. It's a 2/2 with haste. When it attacks, you create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking. Whenever you cast Squee, you may cast it from your graveyard by paying 3 and a red and exiling 4 other cards from your graveyard rather than paying its mana cost. So it has Escape 4, basically. Card's quite bad. Doesn't really do a whole lot. Comes in, makes a goblin with it. If it dies, you can pay a bunch of mana and exile some stuff to bring it back. Definitely the worst Squee by a mile. The other Squees are much better, as they can reliably come back without much mana investment, and they have some of the Squees have infinites that you can do with them and stuff. So this card sucks. Not very good. I don't really see a home for it anywhere. I don't know why you'd want to play this Squee. Cool card as far as like the arts and stuff like that. I'd like to see Squee coming back again, but this is by far the worst Squee. Aaron, Benalia's Rune, white, black for a 3/3 Phyrexian Human. It has Menace. You can pay a white and a black, tap, and sacrifice another creature to put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. This seems like a good card to put in decks. I don't anticipate this being a commander of many decks. I will say I don't think this card is bad by any means. It's just not really that exciting as a commander. But it's a pretty powerful card at that. It's a 3-mana, 3/3 Menace, which is fine as it is. But when you run out of things to do or you need a sack outlet, sacking a creature to put 1/1 counters on everything, including this, it's a pretty nice payoff, as it'll make your whole army into threats all of a sudden, it'll make attacking and blocking. It'll make blocking for your opponents really hard and attacking into you really hard, as it messes with the combat math a ton if you have mana and this untapped. So, cool card, but not the most powerful or that interesting, unique. Astor, Bearer of Blades, 2 white-red for a 4/4 human warrior. When it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal an equipment or a vehicle from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest of them in the bottom of your library in a random order. It gives equipment you control the ability to equip for 1, and vehicles you control to have the ability to crew for 1. Definitely the equipment side of this is way better than the vehicle side of this, making them crew for 1. Reason being is because most vehicles don't have that high of crew costs. A 4/4 will crew the vast majority, if not almost all, vehicles, as I've kind of learned from playing my vehicles decks. This is kind of the same reason why Shorkai is quite a bit better than whatever the other precon commanders that came from that vehicles deck, the one that makes your vehicles have crew 2. As it's just most vehicles that you want to play usually just have low crew costs, so they're easy to crew as it stands. Most of them will have crew 2 or 3. Anyway, all that being said, cheating equipment cost is way better. There's a lot of really good equipment. It's more reliable value in general. And yeah, there's plenty of equipment that have high equip costs that make it, to kind of balance it out. And if you cheat those, you're actually cheating mana rather than cheating, an activated ability a little bit or whatever. So yeah, I think the equipment side of this is at least interesting. That being said, if you are building an equipment commander at this point, which is what we kind of decided with this card is the better side, then there's probably quite a bit better equipment commanders. But this is a really good 99 card for an equipment deck, as looking at 7 cards for an equipment is almost guaranteed to get an equipment, I would say, if you're an equipment deck. And cheating equipment costs down to 1 is a pretty good ability. But I don't think there's enough payoff here to make it the best equipment commander by any means. The one that we got in the precon that draws you cards when it attacks based on equipment is definitely better than this. But this would be a good card for that deck and for other Boros equipment decks. This is a filler card. Baird Argavian Recruiter. It's a red and a white for a 2/2. Beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with power greater than its base power, you create a 1/1. So this just triggers on your step, just makes 1/1/1, and you have to pump your creature in some way with an equipment or aura or whatever giant growth effect, and all you get's a 1/1. So yeah, just a filler card. Balmor Battle Mage Captain. 1 blue, a blue and a red for a 1/3 flyer bird wizard. When you cast instant or sorcery spell, creatures you control get +1/0 and gain trample till end of turn. Interesting effect. We have a lot of cards that do this sort of effect. This is definitely one of the better ones, especially at a cheaper mana cost. But we have a lot of cards that do this. So if you have a deck that's similar to this, then this is not going to do a whole lot more. I think this is definitely on the better side. We have some cards that do essentially this thing. There's Adeliz the Sindelwind, which does it for wizards, which this is a wizard. But usually those decks have a hard time balancing between how many creatures do I play based on how many instants and sorceries I play. That being said, I think this would probably be a little bit easier to get going over than Adeliz, because Adeliz wants you to specifically have wizards. And there's plenty of instants and sorceries that just make tokens, like goblin tokens and random other kind of tokens. And this doesn't ask you to be in any sort of specific strategy. So you can go a lot more into the instant and sorcery heavy side of it, unlike you can with Adeliz, where you have to have a decent number of wizards specifically. So I think this card's probably a more reliable way to go over Adeliz. But your creatures will fall to the weight side quite a bit, as this only pumps their power. But it gives them trample and stuff, so there's some things to be done here, but it's just an Izzet Spellslinger sort of commander. So the difference is here, you're kind of built around Izzet wants you to make creatures. So you want to play a lot of instants and sorceries that make creature tokens, and then you play other instants and sorceries that you normally play to draw cards or whatever, and then it pumps all your tokens and stuff. So we've seen this card in different forms before, but this is not a bad package here, at least compared to the other ones. Bortuk Bone Rattle. 4 green black for a 4/4. Has domain, so when there's a battlefield, if you cast it, choose target creature card in your graveyard, return that card to the battlefield. If its mana value is less than or equal to the number of basic lands among land types you control, otherwise you can put it into your hand. So this is like super nerfed. This is like super nerfed. What's the green black experience commander? Oh, I can't believe I'm gonna blank on this. You know the name of it, whatever. Because it's just a one-shot effect. It's got domain, so if this is your commander, all it's going to do is get 2 CMC or less. So, um, not particularly a very good card. It is mostly a limited filler card. Even if you have a domain of 5, you're still not like getting insane value, because you only get this on ETB if you cast it. So if you reanimate this, it doesn't bring back another creature with it. So not much to be doing with this card. It's mostly limited filler. Alice Ilkor, Sadistic Pilgrim. White and a black for a 2/2 with Death Touch. It's a Phyrexian Core Cleric. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life. Whenever another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. So if you ever wanted to play Suture Priest in your command zone, here you go. There's definitely a few people that I know that love Soul Sisters. This is a very good Soul Sister, and sort of an aristocratic package. It gives you the colors that you want in white and black to play this sort of effect. And the 2/2 Death Touch here is very annoying to attack onto, as you don't mind recasting this once or twice. 4 or 6 mana is definitely doable with this card, as a lot of the other Soul Sisters and other cards in your deck are going to be very cheap. So I think this card's actually pretty good. Not the most exciting card, as we've seen this effect a lot before, but we've never seen it like on a package this efficient. This is just a normal rate for this sort of card, and you get to put it in your command zone. So that's really nice. Definitely a card you will see, and it'll be quite good when you see it. Urtai Resurrected, 2 blue-black for a 3/2, Phyrexian Human Wizard. It has Flash. When it enters the battlefield, you choose up to 1. Counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability, its controller draws a card. Destroy another target creature or planeswalker, its controller draws a card. This card is really good, really sweet. It answers basically anything. Answers any ability, activated, triggered, or spell, or you can use it to answer any creature, planeswalker. You get the owner of it to draw a card. You can use it on your own thing, notably if you just want to sack something to draw a card if you're desperate. But this is a kind of catch-all sort of card, and it's on a pretty efficient package at 4 mana. It has Flash, so you can answer whatever you need to. And it's an ETB trigger, so if you flicker it or reanimate it or do anything like that, you'll get it again. Yeah, this is just a really efficient package. It answers anything, basically. Yeah, it's the only thing it doesn't answer is uncounterable things, obviously. You can't counter them, but other than that, man, this card is just seems really good, just in general. It's probably going to be, if you make it your commander, it's going to be really annoying, obviously. You would just be in blue-black control at that point, I'm sure. But yeah, this card is just very good package. Who cares if you give them a card, you stop the thing you cared about. So yeah, and you can use it on your own things if you really need to. So very good card. Garna, Bloodfist of Keld, 1 black, red for a 4/3 human berserker. Whenever another creature you control dies, draw a card if it was attacking. Otherwise, this deals 1 damage to each opponent. I would like this card a lot more if you could deal 1 damage to each opponent or like a target. If you could kind of just point it wherever you want to. That being said, I look at this mostly like an aristocrat sort of Rakdos commander, as you want to be able to reliably sack the creatures to draw cards when you're in combat. So notably, you can do this sort of reconnaissance trick where you can let them do their combat damage and then sack them while you're still in combat after damage has been dealt to draw your cards if you want to. Or I guess you can, just selectively dome your opponents for more damage if you sack them when they're not attacking. So gives you some flexibility. But yeah, it's just another Rakdos sort of aristocracy sacrifice commander. We have Judith and a lot of other cards that sort of do this. So just another one in the line of doing those. Slightly different, but, same kind of deck. Ivy, Gleeful Spell Thief. Very interesting card here. Green and a blue for a 2/1. Very rogue. It has flying. Whenever a player casts a spell that targets only a single creature or other than Ivy, you may copy that spell, and that's the copy targets Ivy. So notably, you may do it. It counts for any player. So if your opponents cast an aura or equipment, or if they cast an aura or some sort of instant or sorcery onto their things, then you may copy it. You may put it on Ivy. And then I would presume that you'd probably play mostly auras in your deck and put them on your other creatures, your sort of, curiosity sort of effects to kind of get your card advantage engine going and stuff like that. But yeah, this is obviously a really unique commander, really interesting design. Not something we've really seen before. It's going to be like a blue-green sort of auras, matters, enchantressy sort of deck that can also disrupt your opponents a bit by getting value off of their cards sometimes. So pretty interesting card, for sure. Very unique build around. Joyride Ageless Innovator, blue and a red for a 2/3 Human Artificer. You can tap and put 2 Ingenuity counters on this. Then you may put an artifact card with mana value X or less from your hand onto the battlefield, or X is the number of Ingenuity counters on Joyride. This card seems quite good. You initially will get to be able to put a 2 or 1 drop the turn that you untap with it. It comes out on turn 2. So it comes out real early and gets your mana value engine going. But once you go to 2 to 4 to 6, it seems like a pretty easy thing to do, as there's a decent number of artifacts that will untap this, especially if you make this into an artifact. I do think this is probably worse than the other Joyra, the 4-mana Joyra, as that one is a very reliable card advantage engine. And I can see you running out of cards in hand pretty easily. With this card, you might overextend into a board wipe or something. So just keep that in mind as you play this card. That being said, this card is quite good. Seems kind of pretty generically powerful. Cheats mana value pretty well. But once this thing dies once, it's going to be a little awkward. Unlike the other Joyra, or you don't mind if it dies. You'll play it again later and get your card advantage engine going. So yeah, I think this card's good. Worse than the other Joyra, the other artifact Joyra. But that's obviously a very high bar to clear. But cool card. Pretty powerful. Joda the Unifier. It's a Wooburg 5/5 human wizard. Legendary creatures you control get +X, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control. Whenever you cast a legendary spell, it basically is Cascade for legendary stuff. So yeah, this card is just another entrance into the Wooburg boring commanders that ask you to do a very simple archetype. This one asks you to do legendary spells, and then it'll give you pretty insane value for doing that. Like I've been saying throughout the video, legendary tribal is a very easy thing to do. They print 1 million legendary creatures at all sorts of mana costs nowadays. This makes your army into giant idiots and gives you extra value in the form of Cascade. So you're going to see this deck a lot. It's going to be really boring. You're going to get real tired of it real quick, especially if you play Arena. I'm sure you're going to see this deck everywhere. People love playing garbage Wooburg decks on Arena and in person. So yeah, you're going to see this card a lot just because it's Wooburg and because it gives you just a ton of value for just playing the game of Magic. So yeah, you're going to see this card a lot. It's going to get real boring. Yeah, it is what it is. Ask you to play a real easy build around, which is Legendary Tribal. Yeah, real easy to do. King Darien, XLV3. I'm going to guess that that's like 48 or something. I don't know, though. 1 green-white for a 2/3 human soldier. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. You can pay 3 green and a white to put a 1/1 counter on this and create a 1/1 soldier token. And you can sacrifice this to make creature tokens you control have hexproof and indestructible. I think this is actually quite a good tokens matters commander. I think this might actually give Reese a run for his money, as this gives you really good effect in the form of an anthem and board protection for your tokens, which is a very hard ask for tokens. Usually that's the problem with tokens is you overextend, then you board wipe, and that's like really hard for you to rebuild. While this gives you a pretty reliable way to protect your board of tokens. It's an anthem. It allows you, it's easy to replay. It's got a mana sink into it, which is also another downfall of tokens decks. If you get board wiped or fall behind, you run out of things to do, and this gives you a thing to do. So yeah, I think this is a very good card. It doesn't ask anything from you up front. You don't have to tap it to use any of its abilities like you do with Reese, where you have to play it, then untap with it, and then do your thing. So yeah, I really like this card as a tokens commander. This would be, if I was building a tokens matters like Selesnya deck, this would be my go-to over like Tristani and Reese and stuff. I like the package that this offers quite a bit more. I think this card's quite good, even in the 99 of decks and stuff. So keep your eye out for this card. I think this card's very good. It's obviously an archetype that's pretty played out. We've seen this build for a long time in Selesnya tokens, but I think this is probably the best Selesnya tokens commander that we have, honestly. So yeah, but even if it's not your commander, there's plenty of decks that it will go in. Ligma, Hand of Hatred. Just kidding, it's Lagomos. 1 black-red for a 1/3 human shaman. Beginning of combat on your turn, you make a 2/1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste. Sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. And then it also has the ability to tap, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Activate only if you control, only if 5 or more creatures died this turn. A couple interesting things about this card is it gives you a creature that's going to guarantee die. Also, the second ability just says creatures died this turn. Doesn't have to be your creatures, can be any creatures. And it just puts the card straight into your hand. It's at instant speed. So if you have any way to untap this card, you can tutor more than once a turn. So I think there's actually, this looks like just a normal Rakdos sacrifice sort of commander, but I think there's actually quite a bit of interesting things you can do with this as far as like untapping it, tutoring multiple times. Having 5 creatures die on a turn seems like a pretty easy bar to hit, especially since this gives you 1. And then Rakdos sacrifice decks are all over the place. It's real easy to get those decks sort of going. So you can run that normal suite in the deck. But yeah, I don't sleep on this card. I think this card's quite good, and it's I think there's some build around sort of options here too. This is definitely the most interesting Rakdos sacrifice commander in this set review for sure. Has some unique abilities here over other ones. So and the mana cost for this card is very reasonable at 3. So very interesting card for sure. This might be a build around for Bruise Day at some point. Maria, Scholar of Antiquity, 1 red-green for a 3/3 Elf Artificer. You can tap an untapped non-token artifact you control to add green, or you can tap 2 untapped non-token artifacts you control to exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn. Wow, this card's insane. This card kind of does everything. All it asks, this is like Urza Light, and then in some ways it has some options that are almost better than Urza. You're in green-red, so it's obviously a sort of worse artifact shell than Mono Blue, I would say. Mono Blue is generally more payoffs, but you still get to play like Reckless Fireweaver and those sort of cards with this. But yeah, this seems like insane. It has the same sort of Urza clause on it where the artifacts you have can have Summoning Sickness and still work as this. You just tap an untapped one. It doesn't gain the ability to tap. But this gives you mana advantage, quite a bit of it, and it gives you card advantage for no reason, really. And all it asks you is just to play non-token artifacts, which is not really much of an ask because there's a lot of free ones. Yeah, I mean, you probably will still have some tokens in your deck, like Treasures and such. So, yeah, this card seems insane. It's very generically powerful. Red and green are not like the most artifact heavy colors, red more so than green, but I don't think that means a whole lot here because most artifacts are just colorless. So yeah, this card seems insane. I would consider building it for Bruise Day, but I don't think it'll be that interesting. I think this card will just be insanely powerful, and you just put artifacts in the deck. Really, any artifacts will do. I'd say the only thing that might be a little troublesome is like win conditions, but once you get like a Reckless Fireweaver and those sort of cards going, Aether Flux Reservoir, I don't think it'll be that hard to win the game with this card. But yeah, this card seems insane. Very powerful. This card's mostly filler. Nael Azoria Aeronaut, 2 green-blue for a 2/4 flyer. Has Domain. When it deals combat damage to a player, look at the top X cards of your library, X is the number of basic lands types you have. You put one of them on top, the rest on the bottom. If you have all the land types, you get to draw that card. Obviously, as a commander, you can't hit Domain, so the 5 Domain to draw the card, so in that regard, it sucks. And in the regard that you have to attack and hit them to get anything from it sucks. This card just sucks. It's filler. Next up, Nigel, the Storm Runner. 2 blue-blue-red for a 5/4 free wizard. You may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. When this attacks, you may pay 2 generic. If you do, whenever you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. Just another Is It Spells commander. It wants to attack. It doesn't have haste. It doesn't give you much of a payoff. Just copying a spells, like not really that good unless you're taking extra turns. And even then, we have other cards, I would say, that do this quite a bit better. So this is mostly filler. Nameta Primeval Warden. 2 black-green for a 3/4 tree folk. It has reach. If a creature your opponent control would die, exile instead. When you do, you create a 1/1 green sapperling. Pay a green, sacrifice a sapling. This gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Pay 1 and a black, sacrifice 2 saplings to draw a card. This seems like worse Slimefoot to me. That being said, the first ability is definitely the powerful ability. Graveyard hitting on your opponent, and getting some extra value in the process. Really good effect. And this gives you some outlets to draw cards, maybe, while graveyard hitting your opponent. So, like, the shell of this card is, like, on its face, just not a bad card. This card's pretty good. But as far as, like, commanding a deck, it's like, what are you supposed to do? Build around Sapperlings, but then, like, why aren't you just playing Slimefoot? It's, like, a way better commander. But, yeah, this card, as a card itself, is a good card. But there's just, not a ton of build around here as far as a commander. I don't think that you couldn't just do in like just about any other Golgari deck really. So that being said, you'll see this. I think you should play this card in like 99s of like some decks, but don't really see this as much of a commander really. Queen Analia of Rudak. Sure, we'll go with that. Green, white, white for a star. Its power and tough is equal to the number of creatures you control. If one or more creature tokens, if you would create one or more creature tokens, you get an extra soldier. Pretty boring tokens matters commander, much worse than the other ones. I don't think this will even really make the 99s of tokens decks really. The payoff here is just not good enough. It's not a good enough commander compared to like all the other token commanders we talked about today and other ones that exist, so filler. Radha Coalition Warlord, 2 red-green for a 3/3, has domain. When it becomes tapped, another target creature you control gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of basic land types among lands you control. Pretty obvious filler here for the same reason the other domain 2-color commander was. Wrath Weatherlight Stalwart, 1 and a blue, white and a blue for a 1/3 human wizard. Whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, you may tap 2 untapped creatures you control. If you do, draw a card. 3 white, white creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain vigilance till end of turn. Pretty efficient, pretty decent little package here. Once again, another sort of instant and sorcery commander that wants you to also have creatures. So you want to play instants and sorceries that make you creature tokens generally, which white has a decent number of. It can pretty reliably draw you cards, as you only need this and one other creature to draw a card off of that. If you're only playing 1 spell a turn. And it even gives you a nice little mana sink here, pumping your board and giving them vigilance, so then you can use them afterwards to, if you have any mana left over, to tap them to help you draw cards. So nice little package. You'll definitely see this commander. It's not a bad card by any means. Just not the most exciting, but it definitely has a decent payoff for the build around here, so you'll probably see this card. Rada Drabik of Urborg, 2 white, black for a 3/3 zombie wizard, has vigilance and ward 2. Other zombies you control have vigilance. Whenever another legendary creature you control dies, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's not legendary and is a 2/2 black zombie creature token in addition to its other types. So the interesting thing here is, once again, it's another card that makes you not care about the legendary rule. As when the creature dies, you get a non-legendary copy of it. So if you reanimate the original one, you still going to have both. But it asks you to play a legendary sort of tribal deck in Orzhov, which once again, I don't think is really that hard. But once we get in fewer colors like just white, black, I mean, it makes it a little bit harder. But all that being said, I don't think the payoff here is really that interesting with this card. About the most interesting thing I can think of is like reanimating, is like having a Kakusho die on your battlefield. Then you get a new token copy of Kakusho. So yeah, I mean, like, that's interesting a little bit, but like that's about all I can think of that's interests me at least about this card. Yeah, just kind of sounds like it cares about zombie tribal, but then it also cares about legendary creature tribal. Definitely the last payoff is better than playing zombie tribal with this for obvious reasons, but yeah, whatever. It's a card that exists. Not really interesting to me, but you know, it's not bad, I guess. I don't think it's really that good of a card, but it's fine. Rith Liberated Primeval, 2 red, green, white for a 5/5 dragon with flying and ward 2. Other dragons you control have ward 2. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature or planeswalker an opponent controlled was dealt excess damage this turn, create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. So your opponents kind of have to opt into allowing you to make a dragon, as most of the time you're not going to be killing a ton of planeswalkers, and like I guess unless you're in the planeswalker heavy meta. But giving your dragons ward 2 is like fine. It's like not really like the best payoff for playing dragon tribal compared to Miram and Dragon, which are obviously significantly better than this card. But this is I don't know, if you want to play Naya dragons, then I guess this is a okay commander for you. But yeah, other than that, I think most of the abilities on this card are just whatever. But it is a well-statted creature that's annoying to remove, that makes your other creatures annoying to remove. But yeah, just making a dragon every once in a while is like kind of whatever. Until you start threatening your opponents with pretty heavy damage, they're not really going to opt into allowing you to make dragons. But yeah, that being said, it's just a fine card. Rivaz of the Claw, 1 black and a red for a 3/3. Biashino Warlock, love me a Biashino creature. Has Menace. You can tap to add 2 mana of any combination of colors. You can only spend this mana to cast dragons. Once during each of your turns, you may cast a dragon's creature spell from your graveyard. Wherever you cast a dragon creature spell from your graveyard, it gains when this creature dies, exile it. This card's pretty interesting for Dragon Tribal Commander. I like this card. Produces quite a bit of mana to help you cast dragons. The Menace obviously doesn't really matter a whole lot here because you're mostly going to be using this to make mana. But allowing you to cast a dragon once per turn from your graveyard is a very, very nice ability. This helps you get the mana to help you cast it. It asks you to kind of mill yourself to reanimate the dragons, so you get some extra value there. A lot of the black dragons want to be built anyways. They can come back from the graveyard, so there's that interesting aspect as well. So yeah, I think there's some pretty cool, and obviously most dragons nowadays are red. That's where most of the dragons and good dragon payoffs lie. So just being mono red will allow you to get a decent number of dragons. But the black obviously adds a nice little addition here, as it gives you reanimating sort of spells. This is a reanimation spell. It's also a sort of mana rock, mana dork in a way. So yeah, I really like this package. This is a really cool tribal commander in my opinion compared to a lot of the other ones. Interesting build around, gets good payoff. Yeah, I like this card. Next up, Rona Shieldred's Faithful. This is mostly filler. 1 blue, black, black for a 3/4 human wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, each opponent loses a life. Whenever you can cast this from your graveyard by discarding 2 cards and paying its mana cost. Just mostly for limited. Doesn't really do a whole lot in Commander. Doesn't scale very well. Yeah, not that good. Another card that's mostly for limited. Rulik Mon's War in Chief. 1 red, green, green for a 3/3 with Menace, Goblin. When it attacks, you look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield tapped. If you didn't put a card onto the battlefield this way, you create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. Mostly for limited. Not a whole lot to do here. It can get you a land sometimes or a goblin sometimes, but it's just a 3/3 with Menace for 4. So yeah, not a lot going on here. Shauna Purifying Blade, green, white, and blue for a 3/3 human warrior. It has lifelink. Beginning of your end step, you may pay X. If you do, draw X cards. X is the greatest. It can't be greater than the amount of life you gain this turn. So it's kind of like a Well of Lost Streams in the command zone. It allows you to be in Bant, which are kind of the colors you want to be in for life gain. Green and white being that. Gives you all the Soul Sisters and all that good stuff. Blue is mostly just additional here. Blue doesn't really offer you much life gain, but allows you to get a little bit better interaction and stuff. So this is mostly a green-white deck splashing blue. I've kind of been brewing this on Arena. I've been playing around with it because I got one on there. This is a pretty good commander. Really reliable draw engine. Yeah, if you want to play Bant life gain, there hasn't been a really strong commander for that archetype. But here you go. Here's one. This is a pretty good one. That being said, like I said, blue doesn't really offer a whole lot outside of interaction into this pile. But even at its face, this is a quite good commander, I think. Solkanar the Tainted. 2 blue, black, red for a 5/5 elemental demon. Beginning of your end step, choose one that hasn't been chosen. Draw a card. Each opponent loses 2 life. You gain 2 life. It deals 3 damage to up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. Or you exile this, then return to the battlefield under an opponent's control. So I think what you want to do with this card is be in sort of a Grixis control / flicker deck. As you don't really want to give this to your opponents. You want to kind of cash in on the first 3 modes and get a ton of removal and value from it. And then you want to flicker it before it goes under your opponent's control and kind of reset the modes and then start choosing them again. And you get to choose one right away at your end step, so it's pretty reliable sort of removal in the command zone / a little bit of card advantage. So interesting card. Cool build around here, I think, but not really a ton to do with it here. It just kind of does its thing on its own, and all it asks you to do is be able to reset it, which isn't a big ask in Grixis. So yeah. Interesting card, though. It has a lot of different useful modes on it. Soul of Windgrace. 1 red, green, black for a 5/4 cat avatar. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may put a land card from a graveyard onto the battlefield tapped under your control. You can pay a green, discard a land card, you gain 3 life. You can pay 1 and a red to discard a land card, draw a card. Or you can pay 2 and a black to discard a land card. This gets indestructible, and you tap it. Wow, this card is very powerful. This puts the original Windgraves to shame, in my opinion, as this card is just it's a good beater. Protects itself, gives you a discard outlet for your lands, brings them back on entry and attack. So it gives you lots of landfall triggers. Does whatever you want to. You pitch your land to draw a card, then you bring it back with this. You keep one in hand to help protect it. You can gain some life if you need to. And it's overstatted as hell. So yeah, this card just kind of does all of the things you'd want to do in a lands deck. Yeah, this seems like a very powerful Jund lands matter sort of commander. Kind of does whatever you need for you. So not the most exciting build around. We've had plenty of Jund landfall decks, but this is definitely probably the best one for Jund landfall over the other Windgrace. So yeah, this card's very good. Definitely an archetype we've seen a lot of though. Sten Paranoid Partisan, blue and a white for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you choose a card type other than land or creature, so artifact, instant, sorcery, planeswalker. Spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. You can pay 1 blue and a white to exile this, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So you can kind of protect it, flicker it, and reset the mode that you want to choose if you want to cheat the cost of some other things. I guess there's like some interesting things you can do with this. You can kind of, ideally, you'd probably just want to lean into heavy of one archetype, obviously, whether that's artifact, enchantment, or planeswalker, instant or sorcery, whatever. If you're playing instant or sorcery, I'd probably rather play like the other Wrath that we talked about earlier. I think drawing cards is probably a little bit better than cheating the cost of spells in general, but maybe not. But yeah, this card seems quite good. Allows you to play blue-white artifacts, enchantments, or planeswalkers. So this card has plenty of flexibility, protects itself in a way. You do have to leave up 3 mana, but in the late game, that's not very hard to do. So yeah, this card seems pretty generically powerful. Kind of interesting, though. Unique sort of card. So, but it's hella efficient at 2 mana. Like, my goodness. Yeah, this card seems good. Just straight up seems just pretty generically good. Tatiover, Steward of Tides, green, blue for a 3/3. Land creatures you control have flying. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if you have 7 or more lands, up to 1 target land you control becomes a 3/3 green element. 3/3 elemental creature token with haste. It's still a land. Damn. This card's quite a bit worse than the other Tatiova, but the other Tatiova is kind of insane, obviously. But this card's at least interesting. My main kind of interest in this card is playing all the other cards that care about land creatures. And that sort of stuff, the embodiments or whatever that cycle of cards is called, to give them extra boosts and stuff like that. So there's a little bit you can do if you want to do like land creature tribal sort of stuff here. Then this is definitely a cool build around sort of commander for that. 3 mana is very efficient here, obviously, and giving land creatures flying is very powerful and allows you to have a decent outlet to making land creatures. So. But making land creatures can be a little risky sometimes. You can get kind of blown out with a board wipe or whatever. So that being said, cool build around though. There's probably some fun things you can do with it. Tori Diavant, Fury Rider. This is mostly filler here. 1 red, white for a 3/3 with Vigilance and Trample. When this attacks, all other attacking creatures you control get +1/+1 till end of turn. Your red creatures get trample. Your white creatures get untapped. Yeah, just another Boros attacks commander. Definitely not as good as some of the other ones as well. Mostly filler. Tura Kennerud, Sky Knight. 2 white, blue for a 3/3 flyer. Whenever you cast instant sorcery spell, you make a 1/1 soldier. Filler. Just move on. Urg, Spawn of Turg. black, green for a star 5, Frog Beast. Its power is equal number of lands in your graveyard. At the beginning of your upkeep, you look at the top card of your library. You may put that card into your graveyard. You can pay green or black to sacrifice a land to gain 2 life. Mostly filler here. Plenty of other lands cards that are much better than this card. The payoff for this card's not very good. It's just kind of can be a big beater or whatever and maybe gain you some life and mill you a card on your upkeep. Just doesn't do a whole lot. And it's kind of hard to cast at black, green. Vora, oh man, this video's been going for a while. Vorhar, Vodalian Desecrator. Oh my god, why? Blue and a black for a 1/2. Phyrexian Merfolk Wizard. Okay. Let me take a drink real quick after all that. It's a looter. You can tap to draw and discard a card. If the card you discard is an instant or sorcery, you get to drain your opponents for 1. You can pay 2 and sacrifice this. You may cast an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard this turn. If that spell would be put into your graveyard, exile instead. You can only activate this ability as a sorcery. Well, if you've ever wanted to put a looter into your command zone, then you can do that now. So that's pretty cool. Dimir Reanimator is definitely an archetype you can build around with this. And just being able to randomly flash back some value instant or sorcery, whether that's a reanimate, which is what I would generally recommend. But, I mean, hey, you could flash back a dig through time or whatever. It does say you get to cast the spell, so you can pay the, reduction costs like Delve and stuff. So you can do that sort of stuff too with it. But yeah, like I said, I'd mostly want to put this in a Dimir Reanimator sort of shell. I'm considering building around this card for a Bruise Day, so I don't want to spoil too much, but that's kind of what I think about this card. It's a decent looter. I don't think the gain life thing is obviously that relevant, but it's there. But the second ability is a nice upside. I would mostly just play this if it was just a Merfolk looter with a little bit of upside, but the second ability is pretty nice upside to be able to flash back a Reanimator or whatever from your graveyard, so pretty cool card. I like this card. Nice little neat package that we haven't gotten quite this efficient in the command zone in blue-black, so yeah, I like this card. Zar Ogenin, Sign of Efrava, sure. 3 green-white for a 4/4, and it's another domain sort of card, so this is mostly limited. It just puts 1/1 counters on stuff, so yeah, just limited filler. Zur, Eternal Schemer, white, blue-black for a 1/4 human wizard. He's a flyer. Enchantment creatures you control have Death Touch, Lifelink, Hexproof. You can pay 1 and a white. Target non-aura enchantment you control becomes a creature in addition to its other types with base power and toughness equal to its mana value. And then it'll also have the Death Touch, Lifelink, Hexproof since it's now a creature. Pretty powerful card here. You'll generally want to play enchantments that give you value sort of immediately and then turn them into beaters. But yeah, this card obviously relies on staying out on the battlefield because once this dies, the enchantment creatures you control probably won't be very good. But yeah, interesting card. Really cool build around here. Much more fair than the other Zur. Plays well with the other Zur, obviously. But yeah, more fair, cool, interesting card. I like the design of this card a lot. Very unique. And that's it. We made it. Oh, it only took me an hour and a half. That wasn't too bad. I figured it was going to be 2 hours plus. So we went through that pretty well. 75 cards. Knocked them all down. Yeah. That hopefully gives you some ideas of what I think of these early legends. If you have a cool build around or a commander that you like from this list, let me know. Let me know if you'd like to see a build around of a specific commander from this list. I'm kind of getting some ideas online for Bruise Day. As I've kind of mentioned, there's a few that I got my eye on here. So yeah, thanks for checking out the video. Hopefully you stayed all the way till the end. I appreciate y'all sticking around with me. I know that was a long one, but I want to keep doing these set reviews. I like having kind of a comprehensive history / list of things to inform people. I like helping people and teaching people about the game. So thanks for sticking around. Love y'all. Do all the normal algorithm stuff like comment, sub. Thanks again. Love y'all. Have a great one.